Hey, Kevin, how's it going? I think you're muted.
Sorry. Hi. How
Hey
are
there.
you?
Good. Happy you found the right link. I was fiddling with them to make sure we had auto recording. So
Yeah.
that's done.
Okay. Yes, this is being recorded.
All right. So to everyone watching this recording, this is the release group product and UX weekly meeting. Hayan is not with us today because she's out of office. So it's me, senior product designer, and Kevin, group product manager. So I didn't have time to add the items to the agenda, but I can share my screen and we can go over our current and next milestone work. Let me start here. Yeah, so as we had discussed last time, the design issues for this milestone are all focused on usability bugs and small fixes. Mostly on the environments page. These two are on the merge request widget, but also related to environments. These are actually front-end fixes. There's already merge requests for both. One of them is already merged. So happy to be playing around with front end a little bit, and yeah, getting some independence to do these small fixes, so our front end devs can focus on the bigger stuff. The next one in line, they don't have their priorities here, but some of them have priority 4, so those are the ones I'm going to pick up first. But yeah, they are mostly small stuff like change the error messages in empty state when a deployment can be made. This is a little bit trickier, but it's also interesting. It's a user has created this issue to request a different behavior in the deploy to production button, which might be a usability issue. Still needs to be investigated. And yeah, here's a small input field issue that needs to follow the design system. So happy to be tackling those while the team is focused on bugs and performance improvements for this milestone. The next one is pretty similar. It starts to get into onto bigger issues, because these were from, where's the epic? Yeah, from this epic environments bugs to fix. There's another epic that has bigger bugs and design bugs. So started to have design improvements, and there's a third one with actual feature additions to environments page. I think we should have a broader discussion before we get to that point. But for now, I think these are valid bugs to fix. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I have a question for you, which is,
yeah,
how do you think about your weights for a milestone? What do you have a sense of typically how many points you have? I forget what it's called.
Yeah. So these two specifically, they are front-end issues, and they're each one merge request. The reason they have a weight of 2 is because I still had to figure out my development environment. So in practice, it would take longer than a weight of 1. But these others, they follow the UX weight definitions. So essentially, a weight of 1 is something.
No, that's not what I meant.
Not what I meant, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to ask, how many total weights do you have per milestone to spend?
Right. So I'm following more or less what other designers in the group have, and that's between 10 and 15, something around that.
Okay.
And yeah, Hayana was mentioning another designer recently that went up to like 17, and Hayana was like, yeah, maybe cut back a little bit because it's a lot. But I'm still figuring out what these weights mean for my productivity and how does this fit into release. This is the first milestone where I actually booked as much as I could in terms of weight to see how far I could go. So it's an interesting experiment. For 14.2, I think I have 14 points of weight, 13. Yeah, so I'm averaging around that. But you see here, the issues, it's like less issues with bigger weights. So it's a different approach.
Okay, cool.
All right. Let me stop my sharing. How do I do that?
I do not have anything to add today.
No problem at all. Let's go then to cross-stage collaboration updates. From my part, I think it was mostly keeping up with the deployments direction discussions and everything around that. I did.
Yes, thank you for the adding the glossary. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Kenny had a point, which is legit. It's like, hey, these are different definitions than what we have in our product docs. So I think we have what we're proposing to be ideal state and the reality today, and what that means.
Yeah, I thought about that. I saw that message from Kenny. I think there's two approaches we can take. One is we take the docs as the source of truth, and if there's an entry like let's say releases, right, that we have a clear definition for what a release is in the docs, then we just list release and a link to the doc, right? So we don't duplicate the content and it gets out of touch, out of date. The other approach is to have a clear disclaimer that this glossary is an ongoing discussion of the ideal state or where we want to get to, and we leave it at that. I think
we should do both,
ability.
and we should just do both. If
Yeah.
we agree with the definition, link to the definition in the docs. If it's more a proposal and ongoing discussion, we'll list it as such. And
that makes sense.
That's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Let me add your comment here. Keep current definitions box and list.
And I have a more controversial thought as well, and that is, I think this glossary actually should be in the deployment direction. The reason I say that is it's our proposal for how we wish to frame the world. To me, that is not a glossary. That is a proposal and a vision for where we want to get to. And to me, that is direction. What do you think about that?
I think that makes sense. Yeah. After I created the merge request yesterday, I realized that the MR creates the page, but there's no entry point anywhere to it, right? I put it in ops partially because it also has concepts from configure and other places. So it didn't feel right to say, yeah, this is only relevant to release. But under the context of the deployments direction, I think it makes a lot of sense. And it's more helpful for people to read the deployments direction and then have those concepts listed by the end.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad that's an easy sell.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm a big nerd for glossaries and dictionaries and having very clear concepts. So making that more visible makes more sense for me.
Cool. Awesome.
Hiring updates for my part. By the way, thanks for figuring out a replacement for the interview yesterday so quickly.
Well,
appreciate it.
That was kind of a disaster. Everything that could go wrong yesterday did go wrong. I feel bad for the guy.
I saw Hayana had a hard time logging in at the time of the meeting, of the interview.
So we have another one coming up We have 3 coming up again. So I don't know what you want to do as far as your interview training. My take is simple. It's like, yeah, it's great that we have, you know, discipline in doing things the right way. But at the end of the day, you aren't doing this by yourself. You're going to do it with Nicole. And I care about you feeling comfortable with whoever we're being on in terms of your ability to collaborate and work together to be effective. I I I trust your judgment. So therefore I trust you participating in the interview in full. So if we want to make sure we cross our T's and dot our I's, I think what I would do if I were you is there's interviews going all around GitLab. Go find some other interviews to interview as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
That would be my
No,
thought.
I think that makes a lot of sense. My comment on that regard was because I didn't know in detail what shadowing meant, right? I didn't know
Got it.
how much of flexibility I had to be an active part of the interview until I had
Yeah.
checked the boxes. But yeah,
Shadow typically means you introduce yourself in the beginning, turn your video off so you don't distract the
yeah,
others. That's I think that's the more strict definition.
yeah.
But in your
But
case, like you're the main character here.
yeah, yeah, it's my team as well, after all. I'm pretty comfortable with interviewing, and even more so with Nicole leading the first interview. So if on
Cool.
the third or fourth she can be there, or someone else has to be there and I have to lead, that's fine by me.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll see if I can find another PM or designer interview going on and just speed up a little bit on the training.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. I have a sync with her right after this conversation. I'm adding
Okay.
some suggestions to the interview prep on the link I added here, so feel free to take a look.
Okay. Great. Yeah. So we have 3 more candidates coming in. Hopefully this week and next week. I don't remember the exact timing. And then we're doing good on the monitor front, which means I have, in theory, a little bit more time to pay attention to hiring and release. So hopefully we can ramp up our efforts in this area.
Sorry, you meant monitors taking longer than release?
No, monitors faster. So
Faster,
we're
okay.
about to make an offer to somebody. And so that means my attention is less diverted in multiple areas, at least for a little bit of time, so I can focus more on release hiring.
Yeah, that's good to hear. All right. I'll have the sync with Nicole in a bit. But any tips for the interviews and things I should pay
Yeah,
more attention towards?
that's a great question. Something I wanted to bring up. So thanks for asking. So at the end of the day, like what we're evaluating is not whether someone's perfect candidate, but it's a very simple question. And the way I would frame it is, do we trust this person to be effective to work with as a PM in the release area? And baked within this is, are they going to be a good PM? And PMs do a lot of different things, and different people have different style. Some we may be more used to, some we may be less to. But at the end of the day, it's like ask questions in a way that gives you data that informs you. Do you trust this person to be good at doing that? And everyone has different perspectives. That's why yours is so important. 2 is, we work in an extremely technical area that can be difficult. Do we trust this person to either bring existing knowledge or the ability to ramp up and solve these problems that we work with? And the way I would phrase this type of problem is it's a scaling challenge. It's a very much B2B challenge. Uh, it's 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 about, you know, having your sensing mechanism out in order to inform how these things should work together. And of course, PMs also have to pay attention to the system at work from the
Yeah.
market perspective. Do they have experience either directly or indirectly like this? And can they demonstrate ability to learn and grok a large set of information in a quick manner? That's what we care about. At the end of the day, I don't care if they really have release knowledge, because at any rate, we want someone who has the capacity to learn and improve and get better over time. That's what I really want to assess for, and need your help doing that, because you're doing the same thing on your end. So what made others convince you're the right person is a very similar thing here as well.
Yeah. Got it.
Lastly, value fit. Value fit's really important, and specifically, we're not looking for culture fit. Just like you and I don't necessarily have the same culture in terms of like where we come from and stuff like that, but we don't, we want to be diverse, and diversity means many things, in many ways, but we want them to be aligned with our value. Things like being a manager of one, preferring async communication, really focus on results and care less about things like politics or personal upward potential, so that this person might spend the time collaborating and going out of his or her way to help others. These things are what we care about. And the more you kind of pay attention to cues on whether or not there is value alignment, that will give us good data on whether or not this is ultimately a good candidate for us. Yeah, so those are the three things I look for.
Yeah, pretty broad, but they all make sense, and they fit more or less what I had in mind as well. One thing that I think it's kind of hard to capture in interviews is someone's ability to deal with, I mean, complexity, but to a certain extent, really chaos. Like you get into an organization that has a product, it may not be working the way it should be. The signals are there, but not everyone agrees. How do you get everyone together in one direction and goes towards that, right?
So when I
Surfacing those
think about
past
that,
experiences is something I want to try to do.
sure. And for that, I look for people with startup experience, because we're not asking someone to come and product manage a mature product in a super mature company. We're looking for someone to come in and build new product, right? So that type of experience, the chaos, it's not unique here. I've seen it most places I've been. So people with startup experience is definitely valuable.
Got it.
So if you only work for IBM, to be honest, I don't think that's going to be a great fit. As an example.
Well, I mean, I have worked at large companies that had pockets that behaved like startups, so
that could be true.
It could be the case, but yeah, I see what you mean.
Cool.
All right. Well, if you don't have anything else, I think we got 10 minutes back.
Okay.
All right.
Stop the recording.
Yeah, let me stop here.